Costco had always been a place of comfort, filled with bulk goods, shiny electronics, and cheerful samples. There was something soothing about the ordered rows of towering shelves, stocked neatly with all the essentials you could ever need. But that was during the day, when the store buzzed with people. At night, as I would soon find out, Costco was something else entirely, a maze of shadows, whispers, and other things. It started on a Thursday evening. I had worked late and realized I was running out of essentials, detergent, snacks, paper towels. Costco was on my way home, and I had just enough time to slip in before they closed. It was nearly 8:45 p.m. when I parked, the lot mostly empty save for a few straggling vehicles. I grabbed a cart, the metal cold under my hands, and walked briskly toward the entrance. Inside, the fluorescent lights cast a cold, harsh glow over the endless rows of shelves. A distant announcement crackled over the intercom. "Attention Costco shoppers, the store will be closing in 15 minutes. Please bring all purchases to the front." I made my way down the wide aisles, my footsteps echoing around me. It felt strangely deserted. Usually, even at closing, there were a few late shoppers lingering, picking up last-minute items. But as I pushed my cart through the warehouse, I noticed an unsettling absence of people. The usual sounds, the beeping registers, the chatter of customers, the rumble of carts, were conspicuously absent. Only the hum of the overhead lights filled the void. As I headed toward the paper goods section, I passed an empty aisle and thought I saw a shadow flicker out of the corner of my eye. I stopped and glanced down the row of shelves. Nothing but towering stacks of bulk cereal and toilet paper. I shook off the feeling, pushing my cart faster toward the back of the store. A low rumble came from above, and the lights flickered momentarily. When they steadied, I felt a chill down my spine. The shelves around me looked different. The once neatly organized rows were now crooked, slanting toward me as if they were slowly converging. I blinked hard and rubbed my eyes. It was probably just fatigue, or so I hoped. Finally, I reached the paper goods section and grabbed a pack of towels. I was about to turn around when a faint rustling noise caught my attention. It came from the far end of the aisle where the light was dim and shadows danced along the walls. I squinted, peering into the darkness. For a split second, I thought I saw movement, a tall, dark figure slipping behind a shelf. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing eerily in the stillness. No reply. My heart began to pound a little faster. "Must be a stalker or someone messing around," I muttered, trying to convince myself. Still, the unease lingered as I wheeled my cart toward the front of the store. As I approached the checkout lanes, I was met with a disconcerting sight. Every register was dark, the cashier stations abandoned. There were no employees, no other shoppers in sight. The usually lively area felt like a ghost town. Panic began to creep into my chest. I walked up to the front entrance, expecting to see the automatic doors ready to slide open. Instead, they remained firmly shut. I waved my hand in front of the sensors. Nothing. I pushed against the glass, but it wouldn't budge. "What the hell?" I muttered, a sick feeling settling in my stomach. I turned around, intending to head back to the customer service desk for help, when I heard it. A faint, hollow scraping sound like something heavy being dragged across the concrete floor. My blood ran cold. The sound came from one of the aisles, but it was impossible to tell which. I stood frozen, listening. The sound grew louder, echoing ominously through the empty store. My heart pounded furiously and I broke into a jog, heading back toward the customer service desk. The desk was empty, as I had feared. I picked up the phone and put it to my ear, praying for a dial tone. Nothing. Not even static. The line was dead. A cold draft brushed against the back of my neck, making the hairs on my skin stand on end. I turned slowly and looked back into the store. The aisles stretched before me, impossibly long and twisting. The rows of shelves seemed to bend, curving at unnatural angles, the products on them jumbled and chaotic. "No, no, no, this isn't happening," I whispered, my voice trembling. I forced myself to take a deep breath. It's just a store, I thought. It's just a big empty store, and I got locked in. But the rational part of my mind was losing ground to the creeping fear. I turned away from the service desk and started walking, deciding to make a full circle around the store to find another exit. I hadn't taken more than a few steps when I heard it again, the dragging sound. It was closer now, louder. I turned, eyes wide, scanning the aisles. There, at the far end of the adjacent row, a shadowed figure moved. It was tall, impossibly tall, with a vaguely humanoid shape, but it seemed to blend into the darkness, as if it were made of the shadows themselves. "Who are you?" I yelled, my voice echoing off the walls. The figure didn't respond. It simply stood there, motionless, its form barely visible in the dim light. And then it moved, but it didn't walk. It glided, its legs, if it had any, unmoving. The way it approached was wrong, unnatural, and my stomach twisted in fear. I backed away, nearly tripping over my cart, and turned to run. My sneakers squeaked against the concrete as I sprinted down the aisle, breath coming in ragged gasps. The dragging sound followed, growing louder, closing the distance with an eerie speed. I glanced over my shoulder and my heart leaped into my throat. The figure was there, gliding silently but somehow keeping pace with my frantic sprint. "No, no, no!" I cried, my voice rising in panic. I rounded a corner and came to a dead stop. The aisle stretched out before me, impossibly long and unfamiliar. Shelves that had once held snacks and cereals now housed strange, unrecognizable products. Jars filled with black, inky substances, boxes marked with symbols I couldn't read. The air grew colder as I ventured deeper into this new aisle. My breath fogged in front of me, hanging in the frigid air. I stumbled forward, the lights overhead flickering erratically, casting long, distorted shadows. The dragging noise ceased. Silence enveloped me like a thick blanket. I slowed my pace, trying to catch my breath, my eyes darting left and right, expecting the figure to emerge from the shadows at any moment. Then a whisper, soft, insidious, threading through the silence. "Welcome to Costco." The voice was low, guttural, and filled with a mockery of hospitality. It echoed through the aisle, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. I turned in every direction, searching for the source, but saw nothing. A cold hand gripped my shoulder and I screamed, spinning around. But there was no one there. The touch had been real, I was sure of it. I could still feel the icy imprint on my skin. Desperation surged within me. I had to find a way out. I turned and ran down the aisle, my shoes slapping against the concrete. The products on the shelves seemed to pulse with a life of their own, shifting and changing as I passed. The walls of the aisle began to close in, the shelves bending inward, squeezing the path narrower and narrower until I had to duck and weave to avoid colliding with them. Suddenly, I emerged into a clearing, a vast open space where the shelves ended abruptly. I turned and ran down the aisle, my shoes slapping against the concrete. The products on the shelves seemed to pulse with a life of their own, shifting and changing as I passed. The walls of the aisle began to close in, the shelves bending inward, squeezing the path narrower and narrower until I had to duck and weave to avoid colliding with them. Suddenly, I emerged into a clearing, a vast open space where the shelves ended abruptly. In the center stood a massive, towering figure cloaked in darkness, its faceless head tilted as it watched me approach. My body froze, every muscle locked in terror. "You cannot leave," it whispered, its voice sliding into my mind like a knife. "This place is endless, it is hungry." My knees buckled and I collapsed to the ground, my chest heaving. The figure began to advance, gliding soundlessly across the floor. My vision blurred as tears welled up, spilling down my cheeks. I didn't want to die here, lost in this twisted, distorted version of a place I had always considered safe. The figure stopped a few feet away from me. raising one elongated arm. It pointed past me, and I dared to glance in the direction it indicated. Behind me, the rows of shelves had transformed into a single, endless aisle, a narrow corridor that stretched into infinity, vanishing into a point of utter darkness. I looked back at the figure. It tilted its head again as if amused by my terror. "Run," it hissed. Without thinking, I staggered to my feet and bolted down the aisle. I ran and ran, my surroundings blurring, twisting. The products on the shelves became a kaleidoscope of grotesque shapes, rotting food, broken electronics, dismembered mannequin parts. The aisle grew narrower, squeezing me from all sides, the lights overhead flickering erratically. My legs burned, my lungs screamed for air, but I couldn't stop. I had to keep moving, had to escape this endless nightmare. But no matter how far I ran, the aisle stretched on, eternal and unyielding. The whispers returned, louder, overlapping each other, filling the air with their maddening chorus. "Welcome to Costco. Everything you need. Forever." I stumbled and fell, sliding across the cold concrete floor. My body was trembling, my strength nearly gone. I looked up, tears blurring my vision, and saw it again. The figure, standing at the end of the aisle, waiting. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound ripped from the depths of my being. The figure moved forward, arms outstretched, its form warping and twisting as it closed in. And then the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed me. I lay on the floor, paralyzed by fear, the whispers growing louder, circling me. The air was frigid, stifling, pressing against my skin. Seconds passed, minutes, hours, time lost all meaning. The darkness became my reality. And then, just as suddenly as it had vanished, the light returned. I was standing, somehow, back at the front of the store. The doors were open, the parking lot beyond illuminated by the glow of streetlights. I blinked, disoriented, my body trembling. Had it been a dream, a hallucination? I didn't care. I ran. I bolted through the open doors, out into the night, not stopping until I reached my car. I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking, and finally managed to start the engine. As I sped away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The warehouse stood silently behind me, the automatic doors sliding shut. For a brief moment, I saw it, just a flicker, a dark figure standing inside, watching me go. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away. I never went back to that Costco again. But sometimes, late at night, I can still hear it. The dragging sound, the whispers. Costco is still there, waiting. And I know deep down that it's not just a store. It's something much, much worse. And it never truly lets you go.